Hi, welcome to Magpie Moonchild. My name is Kaylee and this is a deck comparison between version 1 and version 2 of the Embroidered Forest Tarot by Alicia May Vamvakakis. I never know if I'm pronouncing that right, so Alicia, if you see this, I'm really sorry that I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly. Okay, so the first big difference between the two is obviously the front design of the box is slightly different. The design with the texture is more pronounced, it's a bit brighter. Also, one is a book opening, one is a two-part box. If I put one this side and two that side, it might be a bit easier. So yeah, one is a two-part box, and they have slightly different wordings on the back. Both have Walk Through an Enchanted Forest. This one has about the suits on there, about it being the cup, the foxes for wands, the bees for swords, and the hares for pentacles. So it invites you to meet them. This is a bit slightly worded differently. They have different side images. So this one has all the fox, the swan, the bee, and the hare on the sides. This has holographic. That's the other thing. One is solid silver and one is holographic silver with the foiling as well. This has a blown leaf design. As I said, this is book opening. So, oh, that's why I was going to put it that side. Book opening for the second version. And we have the two-part box for the original version. As we go into them, what I'll do is I'll get them out and then I'll start. Okay, so I've gone through them all, made sure they're all in order so I can compare these. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the difference in the gilding. So we have this pearlescent holographic with version 2, and we have the shiny silver, plain silver of version 1. As you can see, the difference on the backs is this is reversible, this one is not. The design has been changed so it can be reversible. It's been updated. Does have a clearer print of the actual design on the original one as well. Actually feeling the two together, they feel different as well, which is they feel very different. One feels more plasticky and heavy, and this one feels more buttery and soft and has that different kind of more organic weight to it rather than a plasticky weight to it. That's not to say they're any better or worse than each other. It's just I think I prefer this one, which is really weird because I thought I prefer the second version. Also, as you can see, there are no borders on the new version. They are borderless, which I think does give the artwork that pop, that freedom. You're more immersed in it by not having a border. It also gives a bit more, it's enlarged so you can see a bit more of the detail, more pronounced. The holographics are in the same place on the full. And again, this one is silver. This one has the holographic foil. But they are in the same place. And as you can see, it just by having it a bit bigger, it pops a bit more. You get the texture of the fabric. It just feels... If I could have this cardstock and this borderless with the silver, for me, the silver, I kind of feel is more organic. The plain silver than the holographic. As much as I love the two, for me, I would have the silver. I would have this deck, this cardstock, borderless. Possibly with that design on the back, but in the silver foiling. I just think I prefer the silver foiling and the butteriness of this cardstock. That one's more washy as well than this one. I don't know, there's things I love in both. Anyway, let's have a look at them side by side. So, let's try and get them in a side-by-side place, Kaylee, before we start going. Right, there we go. So, as I said, they do want to dance, they do want to move. So, I've come in a bit closer than normal, so my hands probably look massive. But we have the Fool. We have the Magician. And there has been some foiling changes, where, like what is on there and where has been changed. So we have a leaf here, for example, and we have a snowflake there. So little things like these stitches here have been embossed on as well, extra. So there are more foiling details on the borderless second version, but the imagery does pop more because it is on that borderless setup. High High Priestess, pretty much the same foiling wise. And again, it just pops more because it's borderless. The Empress, I think she actually feels more approachable. I do like the way this is more violety. There's a slightly more lavender tone to this one. However, there's almost like too many stars now. So there should be 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12. It just feels like there's more foiling on around the crown. There are the same stars on the embroidery. It's just, and again, it pops that little bit more because of the being open. The Emperor, so he's pretty much the same with his foiling. The Hierophant, again, very similar. There's stars instead of dots for the foiling. I think I actually prefer the dots. I don't know, it just feels forced with the star a little bit there. The Lovers, complete colour background change on the Lovers. It's more purpley blue than the pink of the original. I actually prefer the anatomical heart to the generic shaped heart. It just feels deeper, more organic, whereas this feels, I don't know, that feels like it's removed something from that for me. I like the colour change. I don't like the change of the heart being removed. The Chariot, so again, very similar to each other, very similar foilings. I don't think there's actually been any changes. Perhaps the foiling is a little bit more dainty on the holographic, but maybe that's the holographic that makes it feel more dainty. Or the fact that it has a bigger, slightly enlarged image with the borderless being there. Okay, Strength, again, very similar. And actually the holographic, the more matte version, feels more in keeping with it this time on that card. So there are pros and cons to all of this being different. The Hermit, again, the foiling has been changed how it's done, and actually in some ways that is a benefit because this just feels a bit heavy in the line work on that with the foiling. So having that extra texture. I don't know if it necessarily needed the extra foiling in the top, because if you look, this hasn't really got any foiling other than a couple of dots. I don't think it necessarily needed that on the top, or the grass being added in that way with foiling. But I agree with the wood changes. That did need to be lighter. Okay, the Wheel of Fortune, again, colour change on the background. So it's now creamy beige instead of green. And actually that does make the design pop more. It's a bit sad losing the green, but it does make the actual plants pop out of its design more. And actually it makes the orange pop more as well. I'm not even sure if these ones necessarily need foiling at all, but I prefer the foiling on the old one than the new one. Justice, so we have Justice card, again very similar with the foiling. I actually prefer the silver. It feels too forced in the rainbow for me personally. It actually adds to the water effect in plain silver. Okay, the Hanged Man. I mean, this looks so different. I mean, they've removed the background butterflies, which makes this pop, and I think that was a great change. Foiling wise, I think they're actually different butterflies. They are different butterflies entirely. When you look, the foiling is a different butterfly. And I prefer the old butterflies than the new ones, as lovely as it is to have the moons in there. I don't feel it needed a side-on one, to be honest. But artist's choice, and it's not awful. It doesn't look awful. I'm just picking my preferences. And then we have the Death card. I do like that there is a more solid snake skin to it, like a more defined snake skin, because this does feel a bit clumpy in places on this one. There is an ever so slight more reddy pink to it than a balmy pink as well with the background, and actually I think that works better on this death card. Actually, of the two, this one feels better. And it feels like it's actually further up on the card as well, just by being expanded. This one feels like it's very close to the border, like it's kind of crammed in, whereas this has its own space to breathe and be. On the borderless, Temperance, they are much a muchness, aren't they? They are much the same. They are the same design. So it was perfect to begin with. And for those that didn't see earlier, I do actually have the original hoop. I do have the original hoop to go with that. That was the one that I backed in the original Kickstarter. I got the Temperance hoop. Mainly because this fella had gone. The devil had already gone with the magpie. I don't think it even needs these anyway, generally on the design. I don't think it needs these shiny bits on the magpie's eyes. I do like the sparkle more on this borderless one than, and actually having the design popped out. And actually the blues aren't as bright on this one as the original, but actually when you're in real life, that actually feels more authentic towards the bird than this one does. But it definitely has a benefit of being blown up that little bit bigger. Tower card, I mean, this just changes it, not even having the border. You can feel the power within it. You'll feel like you're in the event rather than witnessing it, if that makes sense. I don't think any of the foiling has changed, and actually it does feel better on the borderless one, but I think that's because the scale is bigger, and so the lines don't feel as chunky. But again, I do prefer it on the borderless. This one is beautiful, and obviously this is naturally going to work better with the holographic because it is the star, so you have that galactic feel anyway with the foiling. And I do like that this has been added. These trails of starry glitter into the water has been added. Hopefully you can see them sparkling there. They're not on the original one. And actually that more purpley tone, I don't know if that, I think they are the same colour. It just feels more galactic with that one, with the second one. Okay, the moon, again, much the muchness. Having the matte foiling really does benefit that moon. It almost feels too harsh on the original silver. That definition of colour just popping now and then kind of does help the moon card in that sense. If you look, it's just very solid silver white, whereas when you've got the holographic, it breaks it up a little bit. So in that sense, that one does work. This one with the sun is the only card I'm not crazy about in this deck. Not the artwork, but the foiling to me feels unnecessary. You can't see very much of the fawn's face. I would rather that be I'd be able to see it, lower grass that was actually embroidered, and I don't like the foiling of the flower in the middle. Absolutely a couple of leaves maybe, but to me it really takes away from the middle of that sunflower. I want to see the seeds, I want to see the brown, I want to see what I know is actually going on there, and actually it makes the foiling clumpy by trying to make it do that texture. It makes it feel heavy and unnecessary. So I do love all these bursts of little ones around, but to me it feels unnecessary to have the foiling on the sun card, personally. And I do like the foiling around. I think sometimes you don't need the foiling on there, and that is one of them. The Judgment card. Again, I get that this was very subtle, this foiling. Like, you really, to show you on this camera, you really have to see it. There's little bits within this one, and obviously the eye and the whiskers. I feel like this is trying too hard with these cross shapes. It just feels like you're trying. It feels very anime. And anime to me doesn't really go with this embroidery style. So yes, absolutely, you could have amped up the twinkle around the gem, but it didn't have to be these big crosses. but it's beautiful. Okay, the world. Obviously the crown is on both of them with this one, and I will get to the what I mean by that later on. I don't think it needs the crown on either of these. I don't think it needs it at all. The stitching is beautiful on all of them, and having that borderless really does make you see the little cameo silhouette stitched cameos. They are more beautiful by having that border removed. Doesn't feel like they're a background image within an image. They feel like they are part of the image. And the foiling, it feels more defined on this one, but actually I think only that bit did need foiling. It didn't need the extra sparkles around the world snake, the snake around it. Okay, let's go into the Ace of Wands, and again we've added sparkle around the flowers. It's a great touch, but it being silver, it doesn't really make it feel. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was needed on that to add magic, especially with little stars. It feels magical, but it feels like forced Disney magical. Does that make sense? Whereas it was just beautiful and magical and earth magic without the foiling. I don't think they necessarily need it on all of them. Okay, we have the Two of Wands, and again we have the foiling added up the wands. Again, I don't think it needs the foiling. That's probably going to be my opinion on a lot of these. Especially like a forced star shape, it just doesn't feel organic. And this is an organic nature deck, and I think that's where I feel that's happening. It feels less organic for having that foiling, as beautiful as it is. And again, removing that border really does allow you to be in that scene rather than off. And again, we have foiling on this one. Six of Wands. Again, we have this flurry of stars up the middle, up through it, which again, I don't think it necessarily needs. The Seven of Wands has been mirrored reversed this time. And actually, if you look, he looks orange rather than bright, vibrant, reddy orange. So I don't know if the colour's been altered on that one as well. Then we have the Eight of Wands. Again, foil in through with that. You can already see them moving. We don't need the comet trail, so to speak. Then we have the Nine of Wands, and we have this trail of stars going up in a chevron over the fox. I mean, it looks beautiful with it. I just don't think it needs it, especially on the minors quite so much. Like, I didn't miss it being on the minor arcana in the original one, so I don't think it necessarily needs it. With the Page of Wands as well, especially when they become bigger ones and it's very pronounced set star shape, it just feels unnecessary. The Knight of Wands has also been flipped 180, and again you can see the colour difference between the two foxes as well. There is a slightly browner redness, browny red instead of red orange. It's slightly different. And then we go to the Queen of Wands, and this is where I start seeing the crowns being put on, and I don't think they're needed. I think it's actually more beautiful with the flower crown, more organic, more nature-based, more forest-based. And we have the sparkles again around over the fox and up around the flower. And again, I don't think they're necessarily needed. As beautiful as they are, I just think the crowns take away, actually. The flower crown is more what I felt the deck was about originally. And I don't think the crowns are needed in the artwork or the sparkles. Nature is magical all on its own without the sparkles. As we go into the swords, they're stars in the wands, and they are dots in the swords. And again, I don't think we need it. It actually feels like someone's spilt glittery paint over it. what was a beautiful artwork. I do like the more cornflower sky blue rather than the violet-y blue. I do like that change. And it just feels like it was taken at a different angle. I don't know, the bee just feels healthier and thicker, like he's not at the end of the season, he's the beginning of the season. But I don't think it needs the sparkles. I think that's gonna be my opinion. I'll tell you whether it's otherwise, because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't need it. It just feels like it's there because it's there rather than it's serving a purpose, if that makes sense. I think I do like it highlighting those stitches, like highlighting the crosses. It doesn't need the sparkle around it. And I don't think they needed to be as solid across as that. But again, that's like it's celebrating those wounds and that we're healing them. Whereas this feels more like it's an integration of that shadowy part. I'm either or on the crosses on the Three of Swords. So the Four of Swords, again, we have these sparkles added up that way. And actually, I don't know how, but this feels yellower than this one this time. So it seems to be hit or miss with whether they're yellower or oranger with the yellows in these. Again, we have this flowing around. I suppose on this one it does kind of work because it looks like that's where the bees have flown and they've left their pollen. But I don't think it really needs it as such. Six of Swords, this to me really doesn't need the sparkle. This is about escaping to safety and as a card meaning, and that doesn't always, that just feels, I don't know, it just feels unnecessary. You could have used it as foam around the waves, absolutely, to show that it was more waved, but this just feels like there's a fairy been flying around it, and that's not necessarily part of it. Again, this one kind of feels like it is a bit of a fairy now rather than a bee that is standing its ground, because it has this trail and it looks like it has a wand. So it does look a bit like a fairy godmother bee, but yeah, again, I don't think it needs the foiling on that, and this one really doesn't. It almost confuses. There's enough going on, and having the sparkles, to me, it just kind of feels too much, personally. The Nine of Swords. It does show that they have climbed up, to be honest. It shows movement, that they have gone up that kind of ladder of swords. But again, for a heavy meaning card, it doesn't really need the sparkles there. Sometimes you can't sugarcoat sadness, and you shouldn't have to either, because then you're not facing up to the truth of it. The Ten of Swords, I don't know if it's because of the foiling. Again, there's this going up. It feels a bit like there's bubbles underwater going up. I don't feel it needs that. And also, it actually detracts away from the wounds on the bee. I feel like they've been removed a little bit with the blown up image. You can see, I don't know if you can, well, I'm hoping you can see, there's this redness. It kind of disappears a little bit within, partly because you've got this all going on and detracts from it, but you're not seeing the wounds that I feel is quite more organic in that death and rebirth kind of process. Yeah, it's heavy. Page of Wands, Page of Swords, sorry. I really do like it bigger. You see more definition of the stitch. I don't like the foiling around the edge. It doesn't feel like it's needed. It's almost like putting it on for the sake of putting it on. I really hate to say that because I love Alicia and I love her work. It just feels like it's been put on for the sake of being put on. Like, where can I put sparkle on this one? Or I'll make the sword shiny. It doesn't need it. I don't think it needs it. If there was a dandelion clock, you could add it to that to give it like an extra bit of sparkle, like sunlight catches it sometimes. But I do like the bigger body. Seeing more of the stitch. And again, we're here with the queens. I really like the dandelion crown. It didn't have to have the traditional solid bang Britain keep calm and carry on crown on it. It just didn't need it. It was beautiful enough with the dandelion clocks. It's beautiful, beautiful stitch work, and I know how many hours went into this. I really hate saying that I don't. This one kind of works though. It does look like he's trailing pollen behind him. So I don't really like the keep calm crown on it. To me, that just feels like an institution symbol, like you see it on like royal stamped or government things. It just feels more like an institution and human structure being stamped in the middle of nature, and it just doesn't feel, it's almost like, it sounds really weird, but like the government came in and was like more airy-fairy about it, but they still managed to get their mark on it. It just feels like the human world encroached on nature, if that makes sense. Okay, we go into the Ace of Cups. Again, these have little hearts on them. And yes, these are about emotions, but it didn't need to be hearts. It just feels like a generic shape has been put on, rather than, I don't know, it could have been trimming the water ripples, and it just feels like there's too much now going on around something that had enough going on around it. And again, you really lose the detail on the flowers and you lose the detail on the plants. It's detracted rather than added, I feel. It feels like he's hiding from the craziness, the extreme things going on, rather than sitting there and surrounded by beauty. Also, there is a more greeny tone. It's more blue on the original and greeny on the borderless, but it does look better with the borderless. This one does look good with the borderless. Again, you don't really need those flying hearts between it. Perhaps not the bigger ones. A little bit there would have been okay, the more finer ones, but these bigger hearts, they're not really needed. The fact that you see bang in your face their hearts, it just kind of takes away, rather than being a bit of something blowing on the wind that was magical. Again, Three of Cups, it's gone right over the flowers. You've lost all the detail of the flowers and the plants again. It just wasn't needed. And the swans feel more grey in this one than the white of this one. This one, again, it's all over the plant. You can't see the beautiful detail in the stitched flowers because they've been covered by foiling, which is a real shame that all that effort's gone in and it's been covered by foiling. This one, if it didn't have a heart shape and it wasn't quite so big, the little finer ones I think would look really beautiful, especially around here where it's been concentrated on the water. That does feel added to it, and it does make it feel like heavier rain. So in that sense, with it being foreboding and hiding from the rain, yes, that works, but I don't like the heart shape. The heart shape, it just feels forced. It feels like Valentine, again, corporate heart rather than actual natural heart and love. It just feels forced. Six of Cups, again, absolutely the magical, because it is reminiscent, it's nostalgia. We do sprinkle a bit of fairy magic in that. That absolutely does work. It's not over any of the flowers. And it absolutely moves with the flow of that water. So yeah, for this one it works. But again, that heart stamp just doesn't seem to work. But I do like the addition of it on that one. Seven of Cups. Again, we are going right over all the flowers and the plants, and we're losing detail. And I don't think it needed it. Look how graceful it was in the original. And actually, this colour background pops better for this image than the borderless one. Eight of Cups. It's not really a card that has magic trailing behind it, so the bigger ones weren't really needed. You could absolutely have highlighted the water, but I don't feel it needed that. Again, there's another card where there's enough going on behind, like we're leaving a wake behind us, leaving something in your wake. Absolutely. Nine of Cups, this kind of works. Again, the heart stamp, the big hearts don't really work in that sense, but having that trail between the two of them, and that does to me work because it's not encroaching on any of the flowers. It flows with the flow of water, but again, there is enough going on there, but it does show a connectedness between the two, having that there. This just feels like Hollywood got into a family scene and set off fireworks everywhere and went over the top. It just feels unnecessary to have that much foiling around everything going on. It's a nice it was solid enough without the foiling on that one, to me, especially with, it's like having heart confetti everywhere. Like when you go to a wedding, I prefer it with, like when they used to chuck flower petals rather than paper or confetti or whatever, or the silvery foily. It just doesn't feel like foil would be. And again, here with the Page of Cups, it was beautiful as it was. It did not need foiling around it, especially a big explosion of hearts. Knight of Cups, we've added foiling to the flowers again. We've lost detail with the flowers. And actually, this background doesn't make it pop as much as this colour on this one. So, but again, stitching's beautiful. We have the Queen of Cups. I do like it being foiled in, again, I'm really going to say it's the heart stamp that really puts me off the foil on this one. But the foil itself is beautiful around there. I don't think it needs to be down here, but sort of here around, absolutely, it's beautiful. Again, I don't like the heart stamp, and maybe it could be a bit finer than it is on there. And the crown is completely, to me, unnecessary. It didn't need the generic queen crown on there. And again, the blue really does work better in that shading. It's funny how on different cards in different ways they look. One colour is better than the other. One background is better than the other. It's really bizarre. Again, the king of, he didn't need the crown. The sparkles aren't, I mean, the bigger ones, if you took the bigger ones away, like a gentle sparkle, again, that wouldn't look awful. But it's that heart, that generic cookie cutter heart shape that just doesn't sit right. As we go into the pentacles, they've changed the hearts for the 5-petaled flower instead, so it's like a star flower. And again, I don't think it really, well, of the aces, this is the least upsetting as such. But again, it is covering the daisies, and it is taking away from the artwork. It doesn't need it. It feels brighter and more open and full of potential than this one. It's almost like the silver detracts from the yellow, if that makes sense. 2 of Pentacles, again, beautiful image all on its own. I don't think it needs that magic foiling around the rabbit. And again, with the 3 of Pentacles, it looks like they've tried to make a heart shape out of foil around them all, which again, yeah, does show connectivity, but I don't think it needed foiling, especially over the flowers. And you've lost some of the detail on the rabbit's ears and the rabbit's tummy. I don't know, it's like it's been added because, oh, let's add it to every card. It doesn't seem to go. This one, I suppose it gives a feeling of it being enclosed, insular. I'm not mad about that one completely. Not that I'm mad full stop, but I do prefer these borderless for sure. And that one's actually been flipped mirror image as well. So I kind of like that that's contained and held. Those 4 are held. I do like it on that one. I just don't like these shapes, the generic shapes that have been used. It just feels... This one, it's about loss and lack of things, so I don't know why more sparkle has been added. Sorry, I had a knock at the door. So yeah, it's supposed to be about loss and lack of material, shiny monetary goods. So I don't know why we've added lots of foil to it. It doesn't really fit with the energy of the card. 6 of Pentacles is about sharing. So again, I'm not sure why one rabbit is outside of that circle when it's supposed to be inclusive. If you're going to add to that foiling, that circling, this rabbit's been excluded almost. And it's about inclusive and joining and sharing. So I'm not sure why that circle has been put in that way. And again, I don't feel it needs it. I feel it's actually better in the original. 7 of Pentacles, you can feel the potential with it coming off. So in this one, it kind of works. You can feel the potential. Again, it's been mirror imaged, flipped over the other way. And actually, I prefer the flip on this occasion. I do prefer the flip. The mirror, I do prefer this version, and I love that it's borderless. And actually, in this occasion, these sparkles do work for me. So, 8 of Pentacles. So, it's a card about effort and work, and this feels like a fairy godmother come in and did the work for them with that foiling, being along and up the pentacles. Again, they are going across the flower, so you're not seeing all the detail of the daisies, which is a shame because they are beautiful. And he actually looks grumpier on this one. I didn't think if that was possible. He looks grumpy on this one, almost like, well, you did the work for me and I wanted to do it myself. So yeah, it just kind of feels a bit like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo came in and did the work for me. 9 of Pentacles. I mean, I don't think it needed it across the bunny, the hair, sorry. Maybe around the daisies, like showing that extra luxe, but I genuinely don't think it needed anything on this one. Certainly not across the hair's body. 10 of Pentacles. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful as it is as a traditional. Again, I think we've been mirror imaged. And I think, do you know what, I don't think it needs the sprinkles. I don't think it needs the sparkles on there. It's not awful that it's there, but I don't think it needs it, if that makes sense. Page of Pentacles. Again, I don't think it needs it just feels like something's magically come in and done it for them instead of the work being done, which is what the Pentacles are all about. Knight of Pentacles. I actually quite like the foiling on this one. I'm not mad about it. It kind of shows the swiftness of the hair. And obviously the trail across, it just feels more like a breeze blowing through and it carrying potential rather than not having it. Again, I'm going to mention the crowns. The crown in this one is so heavy. It's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. It's just so heavy. It feels like it's stomped on there. And again, we have this foiling up through and around. Yes, she's about luxury, but look at her. Look, the daisy crown is so much more beautiful than the stamped on crown, and it takes away from that beautiful stitched artwork that Alicia did. I don't feel it needed it on that one, or the king actually. I just feel like I do like him being more earthy on this colour scheme though, more brown. And again, that's a massive crown, and really, do you know what, the daisies on their own were enough. And I don't think the sparkles were needed. But there you go. That is the side by side. And I know that's a very long time going through each card. And I'm really sorry. The books themselves, the books that were with them, obviously this is tighter, like the cover, and it's slightly different on the outside. It's set up differently. I actually feel like the original book is a better quality book than the original, the original one. I don't know, this one just feels cheaper made, and the printing quality just doesn't feel the same. The paper texture feels different. So for me, it's going to sound really weird, but I really prefer the 1.0, just for the organicness. It feels like it's an actual nature deck. This feels like some hybrid between nature and everything that goes on. That one tends to wash more. This one more, I think, will be longer lasting. It feels more plasticky. So card quality wise, I mean, it's going to last longer, but yeah, I think that cardstock borderless in this box with that book, there are so many pluses and negatives to each of them. So I would take the back design of this one, put it on the back of this deck with this cardstock, and I would put that book and that deck that I've just created with the back. So yeah, I would go borderless and back design of this one with the cardstock and foiling of this one. But take that book and the deck with that foiled borderless and that back design and put it in this box. So I would take this box, back design and borderless, and I would take these foiling, these background colours possibly as well, and the booklet from this one. Together they have so many positives and negatives between each of them. It's not even negatives really, it's just I prefer certain things in certain decks, and that's how it works. So just to make it all happy, like Temperance, I want a beautiful blend between the two, and I would be like over the moon, ecstatic, can't believe that happened. That would be yeah, it needs to be borderless without the foiling for me to be like, yep, absolutely on point. But again, it's personal preference. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I hope this has been of some use to everybody, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye for now.